this legalized immigration, like, we just want to displace the worker the legal way kind of stance. Like, no, there's a lot of pushback within the tech sphere as well from this stuff, and I think they're gonna hold on to Trump. They're not gonna just break off from Elon from this party. Period.
Well, with this whole American Party, or whatever it's called thing, there's this belief among some people that there's no party that represents the so-called moderates or people in the middle. But that's literally, I would argue that the Main Street Republican Party is the middle. The Democrat Party is just radical left for the most part, except for Fetterman. But because most of the non-radical Democrats have left the Democrat Party, so the Republican Party really does encompass the moderates and the far right. But to be frank, despite what some of these so-called moderates will claim, most of the Republican Party, including Trump, is not far right. They're more towards the middle.
I mean, I'd say I'm going to say there is a machine and contingent of so-called moderate survivors still within the Democratic Party, although they might be weird online about it. But there's stuff going behind the scenes where they're kind of trying to push Gavin Newsom forward because he's like their only hope to clinch the primary and to challenge whoever's next for 2028. I'm telling guys right now, Gavin Newsom, there's going to be a big push for Gavin Newsom to clinch the primary in 2028. I mean, yeah, for the Democrats to clinch the primary. Otherwise, but after that, kind of the game's on for that. But it's not going to be a guarantee he's going to become the next president. But there's going to be a serious push in all directions for Gavin Newsom to get that fucking primary position.
Newsom's not even popular enough in his own state to avoid getting a recall effort.
Yeah, I'm telling you, there's a machine behind this guy, and he's going to get pushed in.
Well, they don't have their hack blue money, Zuki. They may not be able to push it through.
Okay, you guys can think that.
I'm not saying it couldn't happen. Don't get me wrong, because he's got a war chest full of money. Stole.
I mean, the Dems pushed Biden. People just said, "Oh, the fucking Democrats, they're too radical." It's like they pushed Biden over a lot of people just to and he was just almost brain dead by then. So this idea that it's just they're ruthless smart enough to just be willing to do this kind of shit just to get to seem normal, to kind of push it past everything else underneath the skirt. Just that's how they operate. People underestimate how Dems kind of operate in this regard. And I'm telling you right now, even though it's going to be a challenge for him for his past and all this shit, there's going to be a push for him to get the primary.
But their party is in shambles compared to where it was at in 2020.
So true. I mean, but again, they pushed Biden. They were able to push Biden through. They were able to take Biden away and then just replace Kamala by not even by Democratic means, so to speak. I mean, things can happen. They can do things.
Yeah, they had to pull in every favor they had and every crazy trick in the book to get Biden supposedly elected.
Then to get Kamala, basically, to basically take him out and put Kamala in.
And she put them in debt $1 billion.
There you go. So just a heads up, though. There's things happening to make sure Gavin Newsom gonna, it won't be too obvious until later on. But again, it's 2 years off.
Not to mention the whole idea that money, automatically, superior money makes candidates win. I mean, I went to Michigan shortly before the election just to see Michigan, and there was far more Kamala signs than Trump signs in Michigan. And then Trump won there by a bigger margin than Wisconsin, but based off the energy on the ground, you would have thought it would be the opposite.
That's just weird. Somehow Kamala had a bigger showing in Wisconsin than Trump.
Wisconsin's fickle, man. I'm telling you. You can tell by the Supreme Court election this year. It's a fickle place. People, they simultaneously reelected this idiotic lesbian Democrat, and then just 2 years ago, reelected Ron Johnson. So it's a weird place.
I'd say it's just very polarized and divided in the state of America, and even in the very flyover states we're talking about.
I think the idea of a third party also ignores all the progress that we've made, though. Because, like if you go back to 2017, you only had like maybe a few good senators. Now you could argue you have like maybe 20 good ones and like 5 okay ones. And I think what a lot of people aren't getting, and I'm not calling anyone dumb or anything, but a lot of the reason we're not getting a lot done is because you still have a lot of these pre-Trump and even some cases pre-Tea Party Republican senators who are just only interested in expanding the government and spending, and they only do whatever the Uniparty says. So once these people are either retire and get replaced, but we also have to acknowledge that we're not doing a very good job of specifying who needs to be primary and what needs primary, right?
Some of them are taking themselves out though, Lapis. Come on, Tom Tillis is saying.
Well, yeah, Tom Tillis is retiring. I agree.
Yeah, but listen, like the problem is we know who needs to have a target on their head. Lisa Murkowski needs to go. Susan Collins needs to go. We got to get rid of some.
No, not Susan Collins. No.
Don't interrupt me. Don't interrupt me. And then we got to look at in the House. There's people in the House that should go. Some of those New Yorkers need to get the hell out of there. Sorry, Mr. G.
Yeah, a lot of this is low-hanging fruit. It really is, like John Cornyn, right? I mean, it's really easy. Bill Cameron
needs to go.
Yeah, until we can turn Maine, more winnable, I am unfortunately in favor of keeping Susan Collins, but I'm definitely not a fan of her at all.
Here's the deal: we got to hit that 60 votes somehow. 50's not cutting it. That's how come we got some of these things we didn't want, because 50 is what we got, or 53 or whatever the hell we have. That's not enough. We got to do better.
I don't understand why Susan Collins gets so much hate. Meanwhile, you have people who are even more liberal than she is in these deep red states. Joni Ernst is essentially a leftist, and she's in a state that Trump won by nearly 15 points. He won by, 13, 14 points? And yet you have somebody who said that Trump was a racist for trying to arrest criminals. She supports half of Biden's agenda. She voted with him nearly 40% of the time. She's gone on record. Yeah, she literally wants the Biden green energy bull crap. She supports keeping that. There's nothing conservative about her at all, and she's up for re-election next year, and yet nobody wants to primary her, and they're focusing, we need a primary Susan Collins. It's like, dude, we need to get our priorities together. Like, this woman is literally a Democrat. She is in the liberal Republican caucus. It's called Main Street. She is literally a member of this, and yet she has no significant primary challenger. So we're going to go another cycle where liberal Republicans can get reelected without being challenged whatsoever.
A bill that has spending cuts. Yeah, but Lapis, we have a lot of important swing states to win next year. North Carolina, Georgia, and Michigan state to pick up Senate seats or keep it in the case of North Carolina. So I don't, I'm all for primary people like Cassidy and Cornyn and Graham and all
Ernst
this.
is unpopular though in Iowa.
Let him talk.
Yeah, but Lapis, thanks, Martin. The thing is though, it's difficult to run a massive operation to upend 15 incumbents, and at the same time when we're as those of us that are willing to put in the work, there's not necessarily enough of us at this moment in time to try to take on 15 or 20 incumbents in a single election cycle.
I'm not calling for that. I'm saying very, very specific incumbents who are very, 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 very liberal for their state. So, for example, I would say if I had to pick 3, I would pick Joni Ernst, Cornyn, and Mike Rounds because they're very liberal for their states, and those states have shown grassroots energy before. Not that other people shouldn't be primaried, just I'm being realistic.
Well, Cornyn's gone, so you got three others. You
okay,
know,
I'll pick another one.
Well, no, there's three right there more, but there's always room for improvement, and there's definitely places we can go. Like Margot was saying, it's like, what do you mean there's no one we can get out here and work against and briefly? Yes, there are. There's always, and there's winnable races too, places where we can go, and we can definitely get these people out. And you don't get to ever look at seats like Murkowski or Collins if you never go take care of all the low-hanging fruit. So we're doing it in Texas on the state level in the legislature. We've done a pretty good job. It gets better every session. And I'm hopeful, and I know not everybody lives in Texas. They don't get to experience it. They don't get to see victories. They don't get to feel good about, oh my God, we're turning the corner here. We're making changes. We're making progress. So it's easy for you to get dissuaded, disillusioned, and just angry or mad, or just feel left out, or like nothing you do ever matters, and it's never going to matter, and we just do this forever. But it's not true. You can get these people out of there, and eventually they're going to have to leave because the good Lord will take them. And when that happens, you have to be ready. And that's the reason people like Karl Rove and the establishment plays long ball. They're sitting around waiting, just waiting, hoping that a MAGA candidate or a MAGA elected official is going to drop out so they can stick somebody in and shore up the seat for the establishment. They wait on pins and needles, and they have people ready all over the place. And if they don't have somebody up there, they'll pick somebody up and move them there and get them there just to do it. And they'll even run them even though they're not even in the district if they think they can get away with it. Brent Hagenview, remember they were Hagenbach out of
real quick question about you.
what they do. Go ahead.
So, I also wanted to point out that sometimes anti-establishment people will get a really close race and then they'll lose and then they won't run again. So, and then like the next time, that's either some neocon gets in.
Right. But then you also have the exact opposite, where people like Andy Hopper, who ran for state rep in Texas, ran 3 times and won on the 3rd time, and these other people ran twice before they got elected. So it's not always bad news, Lapis. I understand. Sometimes it is.
Tom, you need to also factor in, you get one run if you don't have a lot of money. I mean, if you're tapped out and you're really trying to run, you can't do it 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, that's true.
You have to come up with winning fundraising strategies. You have to hire professional fundraisers. You have to come up with real ways to fundraise money, which is not easy. In Texas, when you got 150 other people running for office, it's crazy. You got 86 Republicans in the House trying to get reelected. You got all these state senators, more than 20 of them. Just all these people run around asking for donations to soak up money, and then on top of that, you have all the county and local and everything else that's going on. So, yeah, that's a real challenge. And then Andy Hopper, what I suggest is you look at candidates that pulled it off, that were in it for 3 years, that didn't have the money, that had to learn how to raise the money. Don't go looking for the people that are just rolling in money for answers. Go look at the people that had to fundraise, had to figure it out on their own, and figure out how did they make this happen? What was their winning strategy? Like, that's where you got to be looking at, is being able to raise grassroots dollars and amounts large enough to make it happen. That doesn't mean you have to raise millions. You got to be able to raise enough to make the election happen. Make sure that people know who it is they're voting for and why. Get your name ID out there. It doesn't take $1 million, maybe 300,000. Depending on what you're running for, you can overcome the establishment. It can be done.
But Tom, do you have any good examples off the top of your head of people that have had great fundraising strategies?
Yeah, I mean, Andy Hopper off the top of my head, Brian Harrison off the top of my head. These are people that had no help from the establishment. These are people that ran for state ledge here in Texas. No help from the outside. Did it on their own. Not easy, but did it on their own. Now, when you start thinking about federal offices, a lot different conversation. Most people that go to federal office have had opportunities to hold office in different seats, you're probably going to be a lot harder road for someone that is a MAGA candidate to go from being unknown to becoming a congressman. Marjorie Taylor Greene had the money, but there are federal limits to what you can contribute to your campaign as well. So she could have her own PAC with a bunch of money, but still her campaign dollars is just the people that she fundraises money from. That's the reason federal office is so much harder. You get all these limits, right? So there's quite a few Congress people, men and women on the right that don't get help from the establishment at all. Look at their money. Thomas Massey. I don't think Thomas Massey was this millionaire before he became a congressman. He was an engineer who, took out the system in a Tesla and put some solar panels in his backyard, and kind of lives on his own out off the grid. He got a nice piece of real estate. I mean, I don't think the man's poor by any means, but I don't think he's like self-funding a multi-million-dollar campaign. So you have to have enough money in your bank account. You don't have to be ultra rich, but you can't be poor. And then you have to have friends and family that can help get your campaign off the ground without the help of the establishment. Then you got to have consultants that are good, that don't work for the establishment, that won't 86 and torpedo your campaign, and that you can afford. And then you have to figure out where the money's actually going to be spent to win the race. Most of it's going to be spent in the mail if you have the money. Very little of it's going to be spent on signs. Yard signs are great, 4x8s are great, commercials are great, but they don't really win campaigns. Door knockers, volunteers, and mail does. It does a much better job. It's just the way it is. I wish I could tell you the text messages and phone calls for it, because that'd be a lot cheaper and easier, but they don't. People are tired of being bugged by the phone, and it's just not useful at all, especially when it comes to fundraising. So you got to have a good strategy that works, and it's repetitive. People have to know who you are. Once you get elected, once you use your name ID up there, it's not too hard to get reelected.
Tom, remember when all the establishment helped Tony Gonzalez win re-election, even though he literally said that his opponent was a Nazi, even though he was a Hispanic YouTuber who was just pro-Second Amendment? Like, he was not like a white supremacist.
Yeah, never forget Elon Musk went out there and campaigned against Brandon Herrera. Never forget. That's exactly what that was. Some very strange things that happened where Elon went out and supported the establishment, where the establishment was working overtime against MAGA candidates. Herrera, if he would have had just a little bit more money, a little bit more earlier head of start, might have won. David Covey, same thing. I mean, the man was working overtime, and they had to overcome 2,500 Democrat crossover votes. Hopefully we eliminate a lot of that when we close the primaries in Texas finally, and it's a little bit easier forward path for us. I just don't think it'll be this cycle. I think it's going to go to court. It's going to be several years. Carlos, go ahead.
Is anyone going to follow the primary Gonzalez this time?
I don't know. We'll see. Who knows? I haven't heard anything about it. Carlos, are you there?
Yeah, what's going on, Tom? I think you folks have kind of moved on, but I just wanted to chime in. I dropped a bunch of stuff in the purple pill, just with the conversation about H-1Bs and just kind of the current job market, the status of just like job seekers, whether they're people who are coming fresh out of college or if they actually do have experience and they're looking to transition to roles. There's a number of things that I think were being discounted, and a lot of things and dependencies that aren't being mentioned. Some of these things are anecdotal, which anecdotal being things that you see during the course of your career in terms of hiring practices. And then there's also what we're seeing as far as the evidence that's coming out about seeing how these practices are implemented. For new college graduates, it's really customary, I see within these networks, of people that are filling out 50 to 60 job applications and sending those out. And some of these people still aren't getting hired. Also, you look at temp agencies, and this isn't just in tech, this is in life sciences, again, aerospace. I'm seeing this across the board in multiple sectors. One of the things that we really need to address also are these human resource departments. Again, we're starting to see cases of discrimination that are being circulated in the media, and you're able to see evidence of these things. So when you're talking about it's broader than just the H-1Bs and talking about people that may not be deemed maybe what the other gentleman was saying, what he's saying, like, hey, maybe these people aren't cut out to be in the workforce. Well, we really don't know that until we remove these barriers that are being implemented that are preventing these people from even getting that trial or getting that chance. And again, we're seeing this. So until we actually start to audit these HR departments and look at the waste bin, like, I mean, you'll see this when you're looking at job candidates, and it's customary also. You look at some of the 8 forms of waste, which is something that corporations can do a good job of, and one of them is wasted talent. And it's really customary for me to see people in lower positions that are overqualified for what they're doing. And you start to scratch your head, and you're like, okay, these people do it by code of conduct. They show up on time and they work hard. So it's like, why the heck aren't they moving up? Why aren't they getting additional opportunities? And if you work for large organizations, there is a lot of incestuous culture in terms of people that transition between companies. So this isn't just like stuff that's occurring in a silo, where it's just like you have blinders on and you're looking to just verify kind of some of your own beliefs or something that you just want to reinforce. Like, these things are in these forces that are occurring that are basically discriminating Americans from getting certain jobs are present, and we're seeing this now. The other opportunity I had was I engaged with a immigration attorney in another space, and it was almost delusional, the manner in which she was speaking about just like her. It's like she was in a fantasy world. She was like seeing herself as being like moral superior, and also the manner in which she spoke, it was almost like she thought Americans were like these Luddites that were incapable of learning or doing advanced topics. She would be like, yeah, we need these talented roles to fill these technical aspects that some people can't do. And when I challenged her, I was like, hey, like, what are these things that you're hiring these people that you can't find Americans for? Because I almost wanted to be like, I'm pretty sure you'd be in jail if we audited your portfolio and the placements, and if I could actually look within my network, I guarantee you I could find people that could do these jobs that are Americans that are here. So it's like, just these conversations around some of these things that are happening at this point in time, given all the information we've seen, especially on this platform, it just really perplexes me kind of what we're talking about and just kind of what's occurring. So yeah, I just wanted to say I was really frustrated to kind of hear some of the previous conversation. Just, I think we should be, at this point, very deliberate in our speech and just the manner in which we're speaking about these things, and they need to change. And as far as the political thing goes and the new party, I think you folks have already kind of run the gamut on that and seen it. I'm pretty pessimistic in how I look at that entire situation, that I think there's so much wrong with the political landscape in this point. It really is dead by like 1,000 cuts. Just in looking at Congress itself, is like they live in like a different realm. It's like the amount of money, the privileges, the access, again, to the staff that they have, they expense, clothes, travel, so many things. It's like, why? I feel like we have some unreasonable expectations of that environment and what these people are being exposed to. That I don't like the idea of this new party that Elon Musk is proposing, but being devil's advocate and just kind of looking at like the lack of results that we're getting, and I know that sometimes things take time, but maybe it could work out. Again, I want to be very clear in that I don't think he's going to be very successful, but it might work. Maybe it might put some pressure, and maybe, again, I don't think comparing libertarians or other fringe parties to kind of what he's trying to do is completely different, just especially given the amount of money that he has access to. I don't think it's comparing apples to apples. I'll be interested to kind of see where it goes. But yeah, just wanted to say thanks for letting me rant, especially on that H-1B thing. I think it's something I'm really passionate about. The other thing is, the last thing is, you're talking about foreign students in educational programs. It is really common that if you have graduated from these programs, especially in grad school, there are certain things that you notice about, especially the students from China. They do congregate. They really focus on their research. They work together collectively, which is good and beneficial. But as far as really assimilating and engaging in the larger community, I haven't seen that in scale. My experience is pretty limited. I don't want to extrapolate that, but I'm starting to hear from other people similar experiences. So it really does make you scratch your head and start to think about some of these things. So yeah, thanks for letting me rant. Appreciate it, Fix.
No problemo. Yeah, thank you for sharing. Amanda, go ahead and get me.
Sure. And I'm gonna have to drop right after this because I'm heading to mass. But okay, so I was gonna talk about how we're moving the needle in Texas, which I'll close with. But now that Carlos spoke, I just want to build off of what he said. So some additional challenges that you have when people are here on like H-1B visas is they're less likely to speak up, especially if there's like whistleblowing situations, because they're so worried about their own position. And I'm not faulting them. I'm just sharing a risk that happens when people are in a vulnerable state and how it can prevent correcting like legitimately wrong behavior.
Reminds me of legals working in the cartel. Go ahead.
Exactly. And another thing is I've had instances where I've seen people who are very qualified, who are citizens, who are kind of gaslit into being told that they're not qualified or that they should be a lower level than what they really are. And then people who are non-citizens, who I believe would be on H-1Bs, are getting the roles that those people have, and the people who are getting those roles are significantly less qualified than the people who are being told that they're unqualified or need to be a lower level.
Absolutely.
And that's a challenge. I mean, that's really problematic because then you have the American citizens who now either can't find a job or are underemployed or are otherwise convinced that they're the problem when they have those skills and then they're being either managed or in junior level roles to people who are significantly less qualified than they are. And then this creates a cycle where I guess Americans get shut out and then it just perpetuates that narrative. And then with Texas, I just wanted to echo what you said, Tom. Like, we are moving the needle in Texas. I think that it's much better for people to invest the energy in strengthening the Republican Party than trying to create something that they think is more perfect outside the party. This whole situation is just very divisive and really just stretches the resources, including the human capital and just the grassroots efforts, and really hinders like productive conversation. Another concern that I have with Elon's filing for his organization, the addresses that they put on there, one was a SpaceX address in Hawthorne, and then the other one was a address in Bastrop that I believe is tied to the Boring Company and also to X. Like when I googled the address, and then since he also has his CFO listed as like the custodian for the files as well as the treasurer, all those things together, I believe, really open them up to risk about commingling of corporate resources and then this party. There are ways in which they can explain it and try to show that they're I guess separating what those resources are and that there's a clear delineation, but just with everything compounded, it does bring up concerns about that and opens up the door for legal conversations.
Americans are shut out of collegiate sports too because of how many foreign students are here.
Oh, Josh, real quick, I wanted to add something to what Amanda was saying. The ESG stuff in 2020, what they were doing to people that didn't, go along with the narratives, we got blacklisted. It was just ridiculous. Like you were saying, you have the qualifications for the job, you're even overqualified in many instances, and then they just don't give you the call. And, I think something that also was that these on LinkedIn, a lot of applications just to get an idea of who's out there, and they don't really have the job opening. And I think that's kind of messed up to be doing that to people. If you don't really have it, you shouldn't have it all listing out there. As far as
Well, sometimes companies will have it listed. Oh, I was gonna say sometimes companies.
Go ahead.
I'm not saying this is okay. I'm just saying this is something that happens. Is sometimes a job will get posted so that way they can meet the qualifications for a minimum number of applicants, even if they already know who or generally what type of person they want to fill for that role. So sometimes it's a check the box exercise. I'm not saying that's okay. I'm not saying that should continue. I'm just saying that it is an observed pattern that sometimes happens.
Amanda's actually
those applications don't take 2 minutes to fill out, you know. Sometimes. Yeah,
Amanda's actually correct. I don't think a lot of voters, even well-informed voters, understand just how much of a pyramid scheme a lot of these visas and just guesswork or programs in general are basically they're only designed to benefit foreigners and the second-class citizen in your own country. Paying taxes for is a good thing and why it's benefiting you. It's basically a scam by two to three foreign countries and a bunch of rich people designed to drive down your wages, take away your culture, and essentially displace you out of like attaining higher status in society. If people actually did the research into these programs, I think you'd find out a lot of people care just about it as much as I do.
Also,
like what she said. She said that they're hiring overqualified people in lower positions and putting these people that come from overseas. They don't really know their real qualifications.
H-1Bs come from very for the jobs that are being given. So it's either cheap corporate labor or maybe it's a form of like racism or something. I don't know. Like it depends on the company, but it really is not like, oh, we're hiring all the best people so we can compete with China. That's a lie. That's a part of the pyramid scheme. It's create lies to justify making you worse off. That's all it is.
Another challenge you have is that universities are highly incentivized to continue to increase their endowments. And one way beyond donations they try to do that is by increasing their revenue income from tuition. And you'll have a lot of people who will come to America for a graduate degree, and they utilize that as a way to get their foot in the door. And some of the degrees I think are questionable about like how much those are building up the skills. But I'm at Mass, so I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.
Yeah, and I'm going to have to cut it out. I've been going for quite some time today. I gotta go get some stuff done, including cooking some dinner and running some errands. So enjoy your Sunday, folks. Cheers. Thanks, Margo, for dropping in, helping me run spaces as usual. Julie already left. All right. Ciao, guys.